The day I moved into the new office, I told myself it was going to be quiet, not happy, not fresh start, just quiet. Because the last 6 months at my old site had been the opposite of quiet. Constant deadlines, constant pressure, and a manager who treated surveillance like a management style. If you were 5 minutes late, he knew. If you took a long lunch, he knew. If you stayed late, he knew that too. And somehow he always spun it like you were still not doing enough. His name was Derek, mid-level operations manager. The kind of guy who called himself old school as an excuse to cross lines. He didn't yell much. That was the problem. He'd smile while he did it. And he loved 2 phrases, accountability, and if you've got nothing to hide. He said them the way some people say, "Good morning." The office I'd been transferred into was in another building across town. Same company, new floor, new badge access, new team. On paper, it was a promotion. Better title, better pay, fewer people above me breathing down my neck. But the transfer wasn't just about money. It was about getting out from under Derek. Nobody ever said it officially, but everyone knew something was coming for him. It had started quietly auditing access logs. Legal had been asking odd questions about data handling. HR had done those weird culture check-ins where they ask if you feel safe and respected, and you can tell they're fishing for something specific. Derek didn't seem worried. If anything, he got sharper, more controlling. He started showing up early and walking the floor. Pretending it was leadership, he'd stop at desks, look at screens, ask why an email hadn't been answered yet. And yes, there were cameras. Not the obvious security ones in the hallway, not the building ones. The small ones, Derek insisted, were for theft prevention, aimed at supply cabinets, printer stations, and the break room. They were never discussed openly. They just appeared. A little black dome above the microwave. A motion sensor that didn't look like a motion sensor. When people joked about it, Derek would smile. Company property, company rules. I learned to keep my face neutral around him, but inside I felt that constant low-grade tension you get when you realize someone has decided you're an object, not a person. So when I got the email confirming my transfer, new office, new team, effective Monday, I didn't celebrate. I just felt air, breathing room. Monday morning, I arrived early. The new building was cleaner, brighter, more glass, more keycard doors, the kind of place where people used meeting rooms instead of shouting across cubicles. My new manager, Karen, greeted me at reception like I mattered. "Welcome. You're in 12B. We've got you set up." She handed me a badge with a different color stripe and walked me to my office. Not a cubicle, an actual office. Small, but mine. One window. A desk that wasn't scratched to death. A chair that didn't lean to one side. A phone with my name already labeled in clean black print. Karen gave me the quick rundown. Team structure, priorities. Who to talk to for procurement. And then she left me alone. Alone. I sat down, opened my laptop, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel someone's eyes on my neck. I spent the first hour doing the boring stuff. Setting up accounts. Testing access. Sending intro emails. I walked the floor, introduced myself, learned where the coffee was. Everything felt normal. And that's when my phone rang. Not my desk phone. My personal cell. Unknown number. I normally let unknown calls go to voicemail, especially during work hours. But something about the timing made my skin tighten, like my body knew before my brain did. I answered, "Hello?" There was a pause, just breathing. Then a voice I recognized immediately. "Hey," Derek said, quiet, too quiet. "It's me. Don't hang up." I froze, staring at the blank wall like it might tell me what to do. "I don't think you should be calling me," I said. "I know," he said fast. "I know. But listen, this isn't HR stuff. I need a favor." My throat went dry. A favor from Derek, the man who treated people like tools. "What could you possibly need from me?" I asked. He took a shallow breath. I could hear noise behind him, an echo like a hallway or a stairwell. "The cameras," he said. I didn't answer. He continued anyway, words coming out clipped and urgent. "The cameras I installed. They're still on. They're still live. And you moved into one of the rooms they cover." My stomach dropped so hard I felt it behind my ribs. "You installed cameras in my new building," I said. "No," he snapped, then lowered his voice again. Not exactly. It's complicated. Just trust me. The feeds are still active, and if IT looks at the network mapping, they'll trace it back." I gripped my phone tighter. "You're telling me you have live cameras running, that you set up, and you didn't shut them off when I transferred?" "I tried," he said, voice cracking for half a second. "I tried last week, but access got changed. They locked me out of certain admin panels, and if I go to IT now, I'm done. I'm not just fired, I'm finished." I could hear the fear under the control. It wasn't fake. It wasn't performance. He was panicking. And Derek didn't panic. Derek made other people panic. "Why are you calling me?" I asked, forcing the words out slowly. "Why would I help you?" "Because the answer felt obvious and ugly," he swallowed. "Because you're in that office now," he said. "And if someone checks the feed, they're going to see things they shouldn't." My blood went cold. "What things?" I asked. Another pause. Then his voice barely a whisper. "Just, please, I need you to unplug the receiver, or cover the lens. Anything, before they review it." I stared at my office door, at the little frosted glass strip where someone walking by could see a shadow. And suddenly, I wasn't breathing room anymore. Suddenly, I was inside something. Something Derek had built. And the worst part? The way he said, "They're going to see things they shouldn't," didn't sound like he was protecting me. It sounded like he was protecting himself. I lowered my voice. "Derek," I said, "are you telling me you've been recording me?" "No," he said too quickly. That single word, too fast, too defensive, told me everything. I didn't respond right away, because a part of me wanted to do the easiest thing, hang up, pretend none of this was my problem. Let Steve handle it. But another part of me, stronger, understood the real danger. If Derek had been filming people, if those feeds were still live, then whatever happened next wasn't just about me. It was about everyone who'd ever sat at a desk under his accountability. And I realized something else too. This call wasn't a mistake. It was a warning. Because Derek didn't call people unless he needed leverage. And if he was calling me now, it meant he believed I was the last person who could stop the footage from becoming evidence. I took a slow breath. "Tell me exactly where the cameras are," I said. He hesitated. Then he gave me the one detail that made my heart pound harder than it had all morning. "They're not just in the hallway," he whispered. "They're inside offices, and mine was one of them." I didn't move after the call ended. I sat there with my phone still in my hand, staring at the edge of my desk like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. Inside offices, not just hallways, not just a break room, not loss prevention, inside. I forced myself to do the one thing Derek never expected from anyone. Slow down and think. Because if I reacted emotionally, if I ran straight to IT or Karen and started shouting cameras, I'd turn this into office gossip before it became a clean, documented case. People would panic. Rumors would spread. Someone would check the ceiling. And the moment the wrong person got spooked, Derek would know the clock had started. And if he still had any control over those feeds, he'd wipe them. So I did what I'd learned to do under him. I acted normal. I stood up, walked out of my office, and forced my face into a calm expression. I went to the kitchen area, poured a coffee I didn't want, and made small talk with a guy from finance I'd just met that morning. My hands were shaking under the counter. I kept hearing Derek's voice. Before they review it, because that meant someone was going to review it. I walked back to my office and shut the door gently, quietly like I wasn't closing it out of fear. Then I scanned the room the way you scan a hotel room when you know someone else has had the key. Not paranoid, just methodical. Ceiling tiles, corners, smoke detector, air vent, that little black box on the wall that looked like a sensor for the lights. I noticed it right away because it didn't match anything else in the room. Everything in this office was uniform, same thermostat, same outlets, same ID plate on the desk phone. But this thing was slightly newer, slightly darker, and it wasn't in line with the rest of the fixtures, like someone had installed it quickly and didn't care if it looked perfect. I stood up, walked over casually, and pretended I was checking the thermostat. Up close, it didn't look like a motion sensor at all. It looked like a small camera housing pretending to be a sensor. My stomach tightened. I didn't touch it. I didn't yank it off the wall. That's what people do in movies. In real life, you don't destroy evidence. You preserve it. I sat back down and opened my laptop. I pulled up the internal ticketing system Karen had shown me earlier, just to see if anything about my office had been logged. Maintenance requests, equipment installs, network drops, nothing. Of course nothing. If Derek had installed something here, it wouldn't be on an official ticket. I checked my new phone extension, then checked the cable routing behind the desk. Again, casual. Like I was just doing setup. And that's when I found the second detail. A thin Ethernet line that wasn't labeled. It ran through the cable channel, tucked behind the desk, disappearing into the wall plate. The plate had 2 ports, one labeled for workstation network and one blank. My workstation was plugged into the labeled port. The blank one had a cable already in it. That cable wasn't for me. It wasn't for my computer. It was for something in the room that needed network access. Something that streamed. I took a photo with my phone, then another from a different angle. Then I turned on video and slowly panned across the wall unit, the port, the cable. Time stamped. Clear. Calm. My breathing was shallow, but my head was getting sharper. Derek had panicked because he couldn't shut it off himself anymore, which meant the camera wasn't running off some random battery pack. It was on the network. And if it was on the network, it was visible to someone who knew where to look. I looked at the wall unit again. That sensor. If it was a network camera, it would likely have a MAC address somewhere. Sometimes there's a tiny label hidden on the underside. Sometimes you can catch it by scanning devices connected to your local port, if you know how. But I wasn't going to start running scans from a corporate laptop. That's a good way to get yourself flagged for unauthorized activity before you've even spoken to the right people. So I did the next best thing. I opened a new email draft. Not to IT, not to HR, to compliance. My company had a compliance hotline email for reporting policy violations, especially anything involving surveillance, privacy, harassment, or workplace misconduct. They took it seriously because they had to. I'd never used it. I typed one sentence, then stopped. Because the moment I sent it, the situation would go official. It would trigger a process. It would create a trail. And that's what I wanted, but only after I had the full picture. Not just, there's a camera. But why? Who approved it? Who had access? And what exactly the camera had been recording? Then my phone buzzed again. A text from Derek. Derek, did you see it? I didn't reply. Another message came in less than a minute later. Derek, don't do anything stupid. Just unplug the cable. I'll explain later. That one made my jaw tighten. Because he wasn't asking anymore. He was directing. Like he still believed he had authority over me, and that told me something important. Derek still thought he had leverage. Either he believed the footage could hurt me, or he believed I'd be blamed if the camera was discovered in my office. I stared at the unlabeled Ethernet cable behind my desk. If I unplugged it, the camera would go dark. That's what Derek wanted. And maybe that would feel satisfying for a second, like taking back control. But it would also give him a clean excuse. He could claim it was old equipment, leftover hardware, a mistake. And if the feed went dark before anyone verified it was live, the most damning part would disappear. So I left it exactly where it was. I stood up, walked to the door, and looked through the glass strip into the hallway. People were walking by, talking, working, normal day, and inside my office something was quietly streaming. I sat down again, took another photo of the wall unit, and this time I zoomed in on the tiny seam along the bottom edge. There, barely visible, was a small screw that didn't match the others, a screw someone had turned by hand. I felt that cold anger rise in my chest, not explosive, focused, because this wasn't just Derek being a controlling boss. This was a man installing surveillance inside private workspaces, without consent, and now he was trying to use me to cover it up. I took a final deep breath and typed the compliance email again. Different this time. Not emotional, not accusatory, just facts. Time of call. Content of voicemail. Presence of device. Network cable. Photos available. Then I paused with my finger hovering over send, because I knew once I hit it, I was stepping into a fight Derek had been preparing for longer than I realized, and I didn't know it yet. But the next call I got wasn't going to be from Derek. It was going to be from someone whose job was to decide whether this stayed internal or became something the company couldn't hide. I stared at the draft email for a full minute before I hit send, not because I was unsure about what I had seen, because I understood what it meant. Once compliance had it in writing, the situation stopped being a weird device in my office and became a formal allegation. Covert surveillance, unauthorized installation, potential privacy violations, and a manager trying to get an employee to tamper with evidence. That's not a workplace conflict. That's a corporate incident. So I kept the message clean and factual. No emotion, no guesses. Date and time of Derek's call. Exact wording. The cameras are still on. They're live. You moved into one of the rooms they cover. Unplug it before anyone checks the feed. The device location in my office. The unlabeled Ethernet cable connected to an unlabeled port. Photos and a short video available timestamped. Then I attached nothing. I didn't want that evidence living in a random email chain. I wanted it handed over properly with someone documenting it. I pressed send. For the first 30 seconds, nothing happened. No instant reply, no pop-up ticket. My inbox stayed quiet. My desk phone didn't ring, and I almost convinced myself I'd imagined the urgency in Derek's voice. Then my cell buzzed again. Derek. Don't do this. I didn't respond. A second text followed immediately. Derek. If you drag compliance into it, you're going to regret it. That one landed differently. It wasn't panic. It was the old Derek trying to put a collar back on. I took a slow breath, turned my phone face down, and forced myself to keep working like normal. I answered 2 onboarding emails. I reviewed a spreadsheet Karen had sent. I even joined a short team huddle and said my name, like my heart wasn't pounding, because I'd learned something over years in corporate life. If you look scared, people treat you like a problem. If you look calm, people treat you like a witness. An hour later, almost on the dot, my desk phone lit up with an internal extension I didn't recognize. I picked up. Hi, this is Monica with compliance, a woman's voice said. Professional, controlled, not warm, not cold, just calibrated. Are you somewhere you can speak privately? I looked at the door, then at the wall unit that might be watching me. I can step out, I said. Please do, she replied, and do not interact with any equipment in your office. Don't unplug anything. Don't cover anything. Don't touch the device. That sentence alone told me my email had landed exactly where it needed to. I walked out with my laptop under my arm like I was heading to a meeting, then moved to an empty conference room down the hall. I shut the door and sat at the far end of the table. I'm alone, I said. Thank you, Monica replied. I'm going to ask a few questions. Answer only what you know firsthand. She didn't say Derek immediately. She didn't ask me how I felt. She didn't ask me to speculate. She asked for sequence. Time of the call. The exact words. Whether I had any prior disputes with him. Whether he'd ever mentioned cameras before. whether I'd seen similar devices in the previous building. I answered carefully. I saw cameras in the old office, but they were presented as security, I said, in the break room and near supply cabinets. Did you ever receive written notice about them? She asked. No. Did you ever sign any acknowledgement? She asked. No. There was a pause, short but meaningful. Then she asked the question that shifted everything. Did he ever use information that could only come from audio or video recording to confront employees? I swallowed, because the honest answer was yes. And I'd buried that memory because it was easier to call it intuition, or office gossip, or Derek being plugged in. But there were moments, little ones, creepy ones. A coworker once got called into his office because she joked in the break room about interviewing elsewhere. She hadn't told anyone in the team. Derek confronted her the same afternoon, smiling like he'd caught her stealing. Another time, I'd had a private conversation with someone about a payroll discrepancy. Quiet, near the printer. Then Derek emailed both of us within an hour, asking why we were creating confusion. At the time, I'd assumed someone overheard, or someone talked. Now it clicked in my head like a lock turning. He made comments that felt too precise, I said slowly, like he knew conversations he wasn't part of. Monica didn't react. She just logged it. Understood, she said. Next question. Do you have photographs of the device and the network port? Yes, I said. Time-stamped. Good, she replied. Do not forward them. We will collect them directly. Then she said, Corporate security and IT security are being notified. We need to secure the office and preserve whatever is running. Preserve, so it was running. It was live. My mouth went dry. Monica continued, voice still, even. Have you discussed this with your new manager or anyone on your floor? No, I said. I haven't told anyone. Keep it that way for now, she said. This is a confidentiality matter. We want to avoid anyone unintentionally altering the scene. I gripped the edge of the conference table. Am I in trouble? I asked. No, she said immediately. You reported a concern and you did not tamper. That's the correct action. Then after a beat, we may ask you to provide a written statement, not right now. Another pause. And I want to be very clear, she added. Do not respond to Derek. Do not warn him. If he contacts you again, document it and notify us. I stared at the conference room wall, feeling that strange mix of relief and dread that comes when someone finally confirms that you're not crazy, and also confirms you're standing on a trap door. Okay, I said. Monica's tone didn't change, but the content did. There's one more thing you should know, she said. I felt my chest tighten. Well, we received a second report this morning, she continued, from a different employee, different building, about Derek requesting help with a camera feed. I sat back, stunned. So I wasn't the only one. He'd been calling around, trying to plug leaks, trying to stop the same discovery from multiple angles. Monica gave me instructions. Return to my desk area. Act normal. Don't go inside my office, and wait. Then she hung up. I sat in silence for a moment. I could hear my own breathing. I could hear the faint hum of the HVAC. And under that calm, a hard realization settled into place. Derek hadn't installed those cameras because he was paranoid about theft. He installed them because he liked power. He liked watching people when they didn't know they were being watched. And now that the company was closing in, he wasn't trying to shut them down for my sake. He was trying to erase his fingerprints. I walked back toward my office, keeping my pace steady. In the hallway, I saw Karen talking with two men I didn't recognize, both in plain clothes, both with badges clipped to their belts, the kind that don't swing like employee badges. One of them looked up when he saw me. Karen's face tightened, not alarmed, but serious. She stepped toward me and lowered her voice. Don't go into your office, she said quietly. We're locking it down. My throat went dry. Then one of the men, calm, older, the posture of someone who'd handled worse than this, held up his hand. Are you the occupant of 12B? he asked. Yes, I said. He nodded once. Then you're the reason we're here, he said. And then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed again in my pocket. Not a text, a call, unknown number. I didn't answer. It went to voicemail. And the moment it stopped ringing, a new message appeared. Just one line. You think compliance protects you? I didn't call the number back. I didn't text Derek. I didn't warn anyone on the floor. I did exactly what compliance told me to do. I documented it. I took a screenshot of the voicemail notification, then another of the caller ID. Then I typed the message into a note with the time down to the minute, and I kept my face neutral, while Karen walked me past my office like it was just a routine facilities issue. 2 men were already there. Corporate security, not building security. The older one introduced himself as Reed. The younger one, Miles, carried a small hard case like a camera tech. Reed spoke quietly, like he didn't want to add drama to the hallway. We're going to secure 12B, he said. Nobody goes in, not you, not IT on this floor, not facilities, only our team and IT security. Karen's eyes flicked to me. I'm sorry, she said, and for the first time all day she looked genuinely unsettled. It's not your fault, I said, and I meant it. Reed pointed down the hall. We need you in a conference room now. They didn't escort me like I was in trouble. They positioned themselves around me like I was a risk target. That alone told me Derek's message wasn't just empty intimidation. Inside the conference room, Monica from compliance joined by phone, and within minutes an IT security lead arrived in person. Sanjay, clean suit, no small talk, laptop already open. Sanjay didn't start with questions. He started with a live network map. There's an unauthorized device broadcasting from your office, he said flatly. You were right not to unplug anything. He turned the laptop slightly so I could see. One small node highlighted in red, then another, then another. Not just my office, multiple. Across 2 floors, across 2 buildings. My stomach tightened again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was anger, because the pattern was too deliberate to be a mistake. Reed asked me for my phone. Not to take it, he said immediately. To document the messages and voicemails the right way, chain of custody. I hesitated for half a second, not because I wanted to hide anything, but because handing over your phone is one of those moments that makes everything feel real. Then I slid it across the table. Miles photographed the screen, the timestamps, the voicemail transcription. Reed wrote down serial numbers and logged my name like he was checking evidence after a break-in. Monica's voice came through the speakerphone, calm but sharper than before. This is now a formal investigation, she said. Do not discuss it with anyone outside this room. Sanjay clicked to another screen. We traced the device, he said. It's not running on a random consumer app. It's streaming through a corporate VLAN that was never meant for cameras. Reed's jaw tightened. How does that happen? Sanjay didn't even look up. Someone with admin-level access created an exception, he said. Someone who knew exactly what they were doing. And then he added the line that made the room go cold. The stream endpoints are being accessed remotely. Monica didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. From where? She asked. Sanjay typed, paused, then looked up at me like he was measuring whether I could handle the next sentence. From an account tied to Derek's credentials, he said, and at least one personal IP address that's consistent with residential internet. I felt my throat tighten. So Derek hadn't just installed cameras. He'd been watching them, from home. Reed leaned back slightly, like he was containing anger through posture. Can we preserve the feeds? Monica asked. Sanjay nodded. We're capturing network traffic now, recording what's live, pulling logs. We'll image the device once it's physically secured. He stood, opened his laptop again, and slid one more item across the table. A printout of device access timestamps. Some were late at night, some early morning, and then I saw a cluster, short bursts, right after my transfer became effective. Derek had checked the feed as soon as I moved in, not because he cared about the company, because he cared about control. Monica spoke again, slower this time. "Thank you for reporting this," she said. "You did exactly what you were supposed to do." That sentence hit like a small release of pressure, a moment of oxygen. I wasn't being viewed as a problem. I was being treated like the person who had stopped something from getting buried. And for a second I thought, maybe this will be clean. Maybe this ends fast. Then Reed's radio crackled. A voice, tight and urgent. "We've got someone at the elevator. He's asking for 12B by number." Reed didn't react outwardly. He just pressed the button on his mic. "Description?" he asked. "Male, mid-40s. Claims he's management, insisting he needs to retrieve property." Reed looked straight at me. "You expecting anyone?" he asked. "No," I said. My phone was still on the table, face down, but I didn't need it to know. Derek wasn't content to threaten from a distance. He was coming in person. Monica's voice came through, still controlled, but there was steel underneath it now. "Reed," she said, "do not allow him near that office." Reed stood. "He won't get within 20 feet. Karen, who'd been silent, finally spoke. "He shouldn't even have access to this building," she said. Sanjay's eyes narrowed. He typed something quickly. "He doesn't," Sanjay said. "Not on paper." Reed moved to the door and spoke into his radio again. "Stop him at the elevator. Verify badge. If he escalates, call local police for trespass. This is corporate security, not a debate club." My heartbeat was steady now, not calm, but focused. Because Derek showing up physically meant one thing. He was trying to destroy evidence, or retrieve something that could destroy him. A minute later, Reed's radio crackled again, louder. "He's refusing to leave. He's saying the employee in 12B is holding company equipment. He wants to talk to him directly." I felt Karen's eyes on me, worried, but I didn't feel small. I felt clear, because Derek's entire tactic was always the same. Isolate someone, pressure them, make them feel like they're alone. And he couldn't do that in a conference room full of security, compliance, and IT. Reed turned to me. "Stay here," he said. "Don't engage." I nodded. Sanjay didn't move. He just kept typing. Monica's voice sharpened. "Document everything," she said. "If he makes any threats, we need the exact language." Then through the glass panel of the conference room door, I saw movement in the hallway. Not Derek. Security had him out by the elevators, but a facilities tech with a small ladder, escorted by Miles and another security officer. They were going to my office. To the camera, to the proof. And for the first time since this started, something inside me eased, because Derek wasn't in control of the scene anymore. The company was. Then Reed's radio cracked one more time, this time with a different tone. "Reed, he just said, and I quote, 'Tell him if he does this, I'll make sure he's never employable again.'" Silence sat in the conference room like weight. Monica didn't hesitate. "That's retaliation," she said. "Escalate." Reed's face stayed calm, but his voice turned colder. "Copy," he said into the radio. "Detain him until police arrive." Karen inhaled sharply. Sanjay finally looked up from his laptop. "We just pulled something else," he said. He rotated the screen toward Monica's speakerphone, then toward me. A list of file names, short video clips, timestamp. Not just live feeds, saved footage. And one folder label stood out, simple, arrogant, like Derek believed nobody would ever see it. Leverage. Sanjay's voice was flat when he spoke, which made it worse. "He wasn't just watching," he said. "He was collecting." My stomach turned, because I understood exactly what leverage meant in a corporate environment. It meant Derek hadn't been managing people. He'd been building a weapon, and somewhere in those clips, whether I liked it or not, there was a piece of my life inside that office, a piece Derek thought he owned. Outside in the hall, Reed's radio crackled again. "Police are here," the voice said. "We're walking him out now." I didn't stand up to see. I didn't need to. But I heard it anyway, muffled through the wall. Derek's voice raised for the first time. Not calm, not smiling. "He's lying. He's setting me up." Then another sound, firm, authoritative. "Sir," hands where I can see them. And then, quieter, closer, like he was aiming his words at the building itself. "You don't understand what you just started." Sanjay closed his laptop. Monica's voice came through one last time, lower and final. "This ends with documentation," she said, "not opinions." I sat there, hands still, breathing controlled, because I knew the chaos phase was here. But I also knew something else now. Derek's control only worked in the shadows, and the lights were finally on. By the time the police walked Derek out of the building, the hallway had gone unnaturally quiet. Not the normal, people are busy, quiet. The kind of quiet where everyone suddenly remembers they have somewhere else to be. Because nobody wants their face attached to a moment that's about to become corporate history. Reed came back into the conference room first. His expression didn't change, but his voice did. Lower, more final. "He's out," he said. "Trespass warning issued. Officers took an initial statement. He's not coming back in today." Karen exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for an hour. Sanjay set his laptop back on the table and looked at Monica's speakerphone. "We're capturing the live streams," he said. "We have logs, we have endpoints, and we're imaging what we can without touching anything that would compromise evidence." Monica's voice came through steady. "Good," she said. "Now we move from reaction to documentation." That's when it hit me. This wasn't going to be a dramatic gotcha moment, and then credits roll. This was going to be forms, procedures, statements, chain of custody, and very careful words. And that was exactly what Derek deserved. Because Derek thrived in chaos, in panic, in emotional reactions. He didn't thrive in records. Miles and the other security officer returned a few minutes later. The hard case was open on the table now. Inside were sealed evidence bags and labels. Everything photographed, tagged, and logged like it mattered, because it did. Reed looked at me. "We're going to ask you to do two things," he said. "First, a written statement while it's fresh. Second, you're going to walk us through what you noticed and where, without entering the office. You point, we document." I nodded. "No problem," I said, and I meant it. The fear had burned off and left something else. A clean, controlled anger that finally had somewhere productive to go. They handed me my phone back long enough to show Monica the messages and the voicemail. Reed documented the exact wording of the threat. "Never employable again." Monica didn't sound surprised. "That's retaliation," she said, "and it's on record now." Karen asked the question everyone was thinking. "How did he even get that in here?" she said. "This is a new building, different floor, different network." Sanjay answered without dramatics. "He didn't do it alone," he said. "Not necessarily in the sense of a co-conspirator, but he used normal corporate weaknesses." He clicked through a timeline. Weeks earlier, there had been a facilities improvement request submitted under a generic project name, something vague like sensor upgrade. It wasn't assigned to Derek officially, but Derek had been copied on the initial email thread because he'd once managed a similar rollout in the old building. Then a vendor badge had been issued for 2 days, again tied to that generic project. And then on the network side, someone had created an exception on a VLAN that should have never been used for camera streaming. The change didn't scream malicious. It looked like a careless admin move, but the access logs didn't look careless. They looked deliberate. "Who made the exception?" Reed asked. Sanjay tapped the screen. "A service account," he said, "but the creation request traces back to Derek's credentials. That's the part that matters." I stared at the access timestamps again. Late nights, early mornings, short bursts right after my transfer. He had checked to see if I was in the room. He had checked to see if his eyes still worked. Monica's voice lowered. "We need to notify impacted employees," she said, "but we do it carefully and we do it correctly. HR will coordinate. Legal will review language, and no one goes hunting for devices on their own." Karen nodded, visibly sick to her stomach. I'm getting everyone off this floor for an hour, she said. I'll call it a fire drill or an HVAC test. I don't care. I want people out of the space while you work. Reed didn't smile, but his approval was obvious. Do it, he said. The next hour moved fast. My office stayed sealed. I didn't go in. I didn't need to. From the hallway, I watched security and IT security document everything: photos, cable routing, port labels, device angles. They didn't rip anything off the wall. They didn't make it dramatic. They treated it like a crime scene because that's what it was. Sanjay confirmed the live stream was still active right up until the moment they isolated it at the network layer, not by unplugging it, by cutting off its ability to talk. And then, with that feed preserved, they removed the device carefully and sealed it. A clean capture, a clean chain. No accidentally destroyed evidence. No, oops, it got unplugged. Derek didn't get a reset button. Later that afternoon, Monica called me directly again. Your written statement was received, she said. It's clear and it's consistent with our technical findings. Thank you. I waited because I could tell she wasn't done. There's something else, she said. The folder label you saw, leverage, was real. But I need you to understand what we're doing with that. My stomach tightened again. We are not circulating it, she continued. We are not allowing internal review as curiosity. It's being preserved for legal and, if required, law enforcement. Access is restricted. I exhaled slowly, not realizing I'd been holding my breath. Okay, I said. And to be clear, Monica added, you will not be required to watch anything. That was the first time that day I felt something like relief. Because the truth is, I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to know what parts of my life Derek thought he owned. I wanted it contained, documented, used against him, quietly and professionally. The next morning, I was brought into a meeting with HR and the company's general counsel, not as an accused employee, as a reporting party. General counsel, Mr. Halverson, didn't waste time. Mr. Carter, he said, you did exactly what we want employees to do. You reported, you documented, and you did not tamper. He slid a one-page document across the table. A formal notice. I was being temporarily relocated while IT finished an audit of the floor, and the company would provide support resources and legal guidance if contacted. HR added another line, carefully phrased. Derek is no longer employed with the company, she said, effective immediately, for cause. For cause. The phrase sounded sterile, but in corporate language, it's a guillotine. I nodded once. What happens now? I asked. Halverson's eyes didn't leave mine. Now, he said, we do what Derek never understood. We let procedures do the damage. He explained it plainly. Its security would audit both buildings for unauthorized devices. Compliance would interview employees, document patterns, and preserve evidence. HR would issue notices to impacted employees. Legal would coordinate with law enforcement as needed. And the threats? I asked. Halverson's voice stayed level. Retaliation attempts will be documented, he said. If you receive anything, emails, calls, messages, you forward them immediately. Do not reply. I thought about Derek's last line. You think compliance protects you? And I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it revealed how his mind worked. He believed the protection was a person, a favor, a relationship. He didn't understand that protection in a functional company is a trail, a process, a record that doesn't care who you are. 2 weeks later, the story became official inside the company. Not as gossip, not as rumor, as a controlled internal communication. Employees were told that an investigation had uncovered unauthorized surveillance devices, that the devices had been removed, and that the company was cooperating with the appropriate authorities. Resources were offered. A hotline was provided. IT security walked teams through what had changed and what had been hardened, and Derek's name wasn't splashed across the email like a trophy. But it didn't need to be. People knew, because people had lived under him. I got one last call from Monica, a month after the initial report. Final update, she said. The evidence we preserved was sufficient. The company has completed its internal actions. Law enforcement has what they need from our side. You won't need to do anything further unless they contact you. And if they do, we'll support you. I sat back in my chair, staring at the window of the office. I'd nearly stopped feeling safe inside. What about the camera in my office? I asked. It's gone, she said, and it's not coming back. That night, I walked out of the building with my shoulders lower than they'd been in months. Not because I won, not because I'd gotten revenge in some cinematic way, because Derek's entire world was built on one assumption, that people would stay quiet. That discomfort would keep them compliant. That embarrassment would keep them isolated. He called me and said, "The cameras are still on," like it was a problem I had to solve for him. He thought I'd panic. He thought I'd unplug the cable. He thought I'd do what everyone always did, make it disappear for the sake of keeping the peace. Instead, I did the one thing he couldn't control. I wrote it down, and once it was written down, it stopped being his secret. It became his evidence, and he finally got what he'd been handing out for years. Quiet consequences, delivered with a smile and absolutely nowhere to hide.